Yo, what's going on? Welcome to another episode of the It's Needed podcast, where we discuss real issues involving law enforcement in the community. It's your boy Ryan Tillman, founder of Breaking Barriers United, and I'm joined today by light-skinned wonder himself, Mr. Oh No, it's the Popo. What's going on, bro?
What's the word, brother? I can't call it. Cannot call it. What's up with you?
Oh, man, you hear my morning voice. Billy, what's up, bro?
Oh, I'm not here today. Just pretend like I'm a lamp or something.
Pretend like I'm a lamp. Hey, that's a buff lamp over there. Where you get that from?
I'm imagining the lamp from A Christmas Story, bro, with the leg.
You know who the best lamp was the Brave Little Toaster.
Bro.
That lamp was...
You know what's funny is I just was watching that movie with my kids like 2 weeks ago. But it was like a Brave Little Toaster 2. I hadn't seen the second one.
Oh, see, I know it was part 2. I got to check that out.
But it was trash. You know how every one of those type of movies is trash. Like Land Before, what is it, Land Before Time?
Are there like classic? 6 of those?
Yeah, but like the first one was good. The first one was good, but everyone after that was trash.
With Littlefoot?
Yeah, bro.
Littlefoot, yeah.
Oh, man.
What's going on with you, brother?
Man, it is the butt crack of dawn. Literally, it is 5 a.m. here in Southern California. So it's 8 a.m. AJ's time. It's funny because Billy asked the question, and I haven't given you guys an answer yet.
Because this has happened before, is why I asked.
No, he said, are we meeting this early because of golf? So I said yes and no. So the yes part of that is the reason I didn't do podcast yesterday is because I played golf early in the morning yesterday.
Look at him. Y'all hear that, right? I just want all the listeners to hear what he just said.
Hold on. But you also had something going on too, because I asked.
No. You had it first, though.
No, I asked. But you said you was meeting with Big Wig, something about shaking hands with Jay-Z and Beyonce or something like that. So then today, I was good all morning, but AJ has to be gone at like 9 o'clock, 9:30 his time.
He's got like a mani-pedi, something like that.
Yeah, it's a mani-pedi.
I wish.
And he has to go put like a bandage on his colon from last week.
Are we dropping that on this podcast, or am I editing that?
No, he said we could. He said it's fair game, bro.
Betrayal.
Fair game. So tell us about how you're
just
feeling.
So everybody knows, all right? Oh, I'm good now. I got some great news. Your boy had to get a colonoscopy, all right?
And that's actually the topic for today, is health.
Taking care of yourself.
Colon health.
I need to stop laughing, bro, because I'm going to be in everything next. So tell us how it went, bro.
I mean,
fantastic.
Yeah, he was like, man, it was the best experience of my life.
I'll say this. The procedure isn't that bad because they like get you so high, or at least they got me so high. Like, I don't really remember much of it. But the prep for it, oh my goodness. So for those of you who got that coming up, I'm gonna just prepare you. They give you a 8-liter jug of like powder, and you mix it with water, and you have to drink half of it the day before and then the other half the morning of, and you already know what it does. Like you might as well just put your phone charger in the bathroom with like an iPad or something, because you're going to be in there all day, all night long. But yeah, that's by far the worst. But yeah, I got good news. It was everything was good in there. So.
Oh, man, I probably need to do that, but,
I was so nervous. Like, I went in, and normally when I'm nervous, I talk a lot. Like, I have like nervous like energy where I just have to talk to people to keep my mind off of things.
Like, so that big thing's about to go down there?
That's it right there. That's not a garden hose. He's not about to water the garden with that.
He's like, why does that look like a? Never mind.
But yeah, I went in there. I was like super quiet, and like the nurse was like trying to like joke with me, and I was just like dead quiet the whole time. And she was like, "Is this your first one?" I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "You seem nervous," and I was like, "I am terrified right now. Like I'm like shaking. Like I'm like scared to get an IV, and like that normally doesn't bother me." So she's like, "It's okay. We'll give you something to calm you down." So they wheel me back in like the little procedure room, and the doctor like sees me just kind of like looking around and like taking deep breaths. And he's like, let's just give him 102. And I was like, dang, that sounds like a lot. So she shoot me up with this stuff, and it hits me, but I'm like still somewhat nervous. So he checks in like 3 to 5 minutes later. And he's like, "Hey, how you feeling?" And I was like, "I'm just ready to get this over with." And then, yeah, I'm not gonna say that part, but anyway, I was like, "I'm ready to get this over with." And I said something else that kind of like let him know like how scared I was. And he was like, yeah, let's just give him a little bit more. Boy, they hit me with that second one. I was out. I was in there joking with them. Yeah, it was funny.
Man.
But
AJ's like a dog.
all is good.
AJ was like a dog that you about to take to a groomer for the first time, bro. Like, you know
Yeah, I
how they
woke up
get
with like
all-
the little lamp thing around my neck, so I couldn't.
She getting scratched down there.
Yeah, so I couldn't scratch down there.
man. Well, it is Tuesday, guys, and AJ's all cleaned out.
Oh, right.
Billy's
I
also
appreciate you putting
cleaned
me on
out.
blast.
Billy's also cleaned out. I could hear it. Oh man, so I'm glad to be back with you guys. I can't even remember what we talked about last episode.
We
Probably
just kind of talked about like a couple different things. You kind of jumping from topic to topic.
Yeah, so we're gonna have probably a special guest with us again in next week or so. I don't think I told you guys, but I've been talking to remember Bishop Omar? Well,
Yeah.
one of his best friends, his name is Anton. Anton did some time in prison and stuff like that, but Anton is devoted to doing a lot of the work that Bishop was doing before he passed away. So Anton has agreed to be on the podcast and things like that. So have another special guest coming to you guys soon. It was actually cool, man. I went to a retreat on, I think it was Friday night with the pastor of my church, and we went to go talk to some of the most highly recruited football players in the country. As a matter of fact, one of them was the number one recruit in the country, committed to SC and stuff like that. And so it was cool to kind of sit down with those guys, talk to them about going to college and what to expect and how to stay away from trouble. So, I just really encourage those of you guys that are listening that are in a position to affect change within the youth, man. I encourage you guys to do it because they need it, man. They need it. And I remember how I was when I was that age. And so they're like sponges, man. They'll soak it all in.
It's funny you say that because I was going to start this podcast off with a story that happened to me this weekend. So I went to a theme park just as like a little like last minute getaway because I go back to work tomorrow. So by the time you're listening, so I'm
Nice.
officially back at work tomorrow. I'm in uniform, back pushing a cruiser. So this past weekend I was like, well, I'm just gonna have like one little like reset, like take a couple of days, go to a theme park, relax in like a little like nice hotel, kick my feet up and just chill before I go back to the grind. So I'm at this theme park and we're waiting in line for this ride, and we're almost like next to get on this coaster. So there's like one more group in front of us, and then there's us, then there's like a group behind us, and they start placing us like, okay, like you're going to be in cart 1 and 2, you guys are going to be in cart 2, 3 and 4. And, it's just like a normal traditional like roller coaster style seating. So I'm like waiting to get on, and this like 13-year-old kid walks up to me, and he is just like staring at me, like laser focused. So I kind of like look at him and like wave at him, and then he like walks out of the queue around like a bunch of people up to me, and he goes, hey, I have a question. And I'm like, oh boy. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, you have a TikTok? So I start laughing, and I kind of played it off for a minute, like, like, what's a TikTok? And he's like, no. He's like, you have a TikTok. Oh no, it's the Popo. So I started talking to him for a little bit, like, yeah, that's me. And he's like, man, I love what you do. And he's like, I fight for you all the time. And I was just like it was just kind of like a weird like statement for like a 13-year-old kid to make. So I was like, well, what do you mean by that? And he's like, I just read the comments. Like some people are just so mean in the comments. And he's like, I fight for you in the comments. And some of my friends are like, you shouldn't like the police, or you shouldn't trust the police. And, I just fight for you with my friends and like people at my school and whatnot. And I was just so humbled by him saying that. Like the fact that like, I've never met this kid a day in my life. He doesn't even live in the same city that I do. Like he lives like miles and miles and miles away. And the fact that he looks up to me so much so that he's willing to argue and fight on my behalf to change other people's perspectives about our profession. And it really just made me think, you never know like who's watching and the effect like you're going to have on them. So like what you said is like right on the money. Like, carry yourself in a way that like the world is watching, because like you never know like who that person is. And it might not even be a kid. Like it might be someone in a position of power. Like it might be the mayor. It might be like someone in city council that's secretly watching you and is inspired by what you do. So just keep that in mind. Like when you go to work and it seems like, you know, everyone's so upset with you, or the community doesn't want you there, and every time you turn on the TV or the radio, it's something negative about you or your profession as a whole. Just keep in mind, like, the way that you move matters, and you really never know who's watching from afar or up close that you're inspiring to be better versions of themselves. So like I just wanted to share that, like, on the podcast, because it really took me away that this 13-year-old kid would walk up to me, you know, recognize me, which is always really cool. You know, we took a picture, but then the fact that he's like, man, I fight for you. Like, he didn't say like, oh, I bicker back and forth, I argue. Like, he said, I fight for you. That's a very strong word for a kid to use. So just keep that in mind when you go out in your cruisers today, or, you know, even if you're not in the field of law enforcement, like, when you go out, you put that suit on, you put your uniform on, you know, you put whatever clothes on that you work in. Keep that story in mind.
Yeah, man, that's so cool. It's so phenomenal. Like you said, man, you just never know who's watching. I can't tell you how many times I've had people come up to me and either say they listen to my stuff or pay attention. And it's just kind of funny too, because I was just at a party, a graduation party the other day, and somebody was telling me that one of his partners was the guy that I did a video on. And that was kind of interesting because, you know, it wasn't a favorable video for the person that I did the recap on, but it wasn't one of those where I try never to put a person down, even if they've done something wrong, just because they're still humans. And it's in the same light that I want people to recognize officers as human beings and have you know, humanistic traits behind our badges and our guns. I try to remember that even when I have to, you know, critique somebody in law enforcement. But the reason we do it, obviously, is because that's the only way that we're going to develop effective transparency with one another and allow people to truly believe in what it is that we're doing. And so, like AJ said, you never know who's watching, and always make sure you lead with that. Because you never know, you might be steering somebody in the right direction or the wrong direction just based on your actions. So,
100%. And like, to take it even step further, like, those times when like things just get so hard and you're like ready to throw in the towel, whether it's like leaving the profession, whether it's stopping doing what you're doing, the community stuff, the outreach, you know, whatever it is that you're doing on a consistent basis, like, whenever you're ready to throw that towel in, take a step back and ask yourself, like, is there somebody watching me right now, and how will this affect them? So it rejuvenated me. Like, this is exactly what I needed going back to work, was that small spark to like light this fire. So like, I'm absolutely ready. Like, I'm so pumped to get back to work. And no matter how negative things are, no matter how bad things are, like, I'm going to try my absolute best to just continue to, one, make the world a better place, but like, two, inspire people, like, by my actions and like by my resiliency and, you know, everything else. Like, you know, I don't know what this kid sees in me that inspires him or makes him want to fight on my behalf. But whatever it is, like, I'm going to magnify it by 2 or 3 times, like, if I can.
Yeah, I love that. Man. Well, I'm excited to see you go back to work, man. Congrats. It's been a long time coming, man. It's almost a year to the date, the George Floyd's death and stuff like that. I actually, Fox 11 did a docu-series that I was featured in, and so I think that actually went out last night, and it was actually cool. I know the chief of police, LAPD, was on it, and Al Sharpton and a whole bunch of other people. So I told people, my caption was, be prepared when you watch this, because there's going to be things that you don't want to see or hear, but make sure you listen to it, because that's, you know, the start to, you know, reconciliation. Is kind of brings me to a point I wanted to make this morning was, you know, how far left is too far left, and how far right is too far right. And what I mean is like, you know, we all have our own preconceived dispositions on certain topics or opinions or ideas, but how far is it? How far do you go when you become too far left to where you're just like the person that you despise on the far right? And how far right can you go to where you're just like the person that you despise that's too far left? And I think sometimes we allow our ideas and emotions and passions get the best of us to where we end up being just like the person on the opposite end of the spectrum, just with different ideas. And that's why, like I said, like I think there's value in neutrality. The only thing that I won't be neutral on is my stance in Jesus Christ. Other than that, I think it's detrimental when you become so far jaded or blinded that you can't even try to understand or comprehend the person on the left. And so, I wanted to throw that out there to you, AJ, is like, how far can you go to where you just become just like the person you despise?
That's a great question, man. I think the answer to that is when you get so far on the opposite end, or when you get so far on your side that you're no longer willing to even hear the other side's views. And I completely agree with you, right? Like I'm very like flexible on pretty much like anything in my life except like my stance on Jesus Christ. But like even with that, like I'm willing to sit down with like people of other religions. I'm willing to sit down with atheists. People who admire like Satan, like and hear what they have to say. Like now, in certain situations, like it's okay to go in with your guard up and protect it. But you can't let that really interfere with like the purpose of you having that conversation or participating in that dialogue, which is to learn. So, I guess to answer that question, it would be when you find yourself so far on your side that you're not even willing to hear out the other side without automatically thinking, they're wrong, they're stupid, how could they think that way? You have to have a conversation with people. You absolutely have to have a conversation with people.
What do you think, Billy?
I mean, I agree with that. I think any rational person would say you need to be able to listen, and none of your ideas are absolutely correct, so you need to be able to understand when you're wrong and change.
Yeah. It's funny because when I was at that party and the guy was telling me like, yeah, that was my partner that you critiqued. One of the things that he brought up and mentioned to me that kind of stuck out was like, he was like, Ryan, but he was like, I know you have your haters. And, but he was like, but a lot of times when you have those haters, nobody actually really knows you. And so that's kind of, one of the points I wanted to make is we make all these decisions, or we have so much emotions and passion behind certain topics that we don't even try to get to know another person and understand why they're saying what they're saying. Because let's just say that their ideas and passions are in complete opposition to yours, but if you knew them as a person and you knew why they felt that way, is that going to prevent you from even trying to get to know them even better or even befriend them? And I think it's okay to be able to befriend people that you have or you don't have adjoining beliefs with, just because that's how we learn. You know what I mean? And I think prior to social media, it allowed us to do that because social media has exposed everybody's thoughts and ideas on particular topics. And therefore, now it allows us to pick and choose who we want to be friends with, just based on seeing what they post up every single day, as opposed to going out there and getting to know people for who they are and then deciding based off of your own personal interaction with them. And so I truly believe we got to be careful on, we have to be careful on being so passionate, whether you are on the left or right. This is not about you being Democrat, Republican, or whatever. This is about you just realizing that it's okay to be passionate, but don't be so far passionate that you also lost perspective of the opposition.
And let's kind of stick with this topic for a while, just because I think it's really good with dissect. I think it's really good to dissect something like this, more so because I honestly believe that the reason the world is so divisive right now is exactly that mindset that we're talking about. Like there are so many people who are like on complete opposite ends of the spectrum that they're not willing to hear each other out. So I want to say this. There are a lot of people who may not know that they are that far on the end of their side or the end of that spectrum. So I want to help you identify yourself if you are, and maybe you wouldn't know it. And it's an easy way for me, and I constantly remind myself this as well, is look at your core group of friends and what they represent. If they all think, act, and look exactly like you, then there's a good chance that you are probably on the extreme or leaning towards the extreme side of that spectrum. you should look at your core group of friends and have like people from different backgrounds, races, religions. And once again, like I'll just speak for me. I look at my wedding photo and, I have all like my best man and all my groomsmen. And this is like my core group of friends, minus my brother Ryan. This is years ago. But even looking at that is, I have older black gentlemen. I have younger white people from the suburbs. I have somebody that's a gay male. I have someone who doesn't believe in Christianity. You name it, all sorts of different walks of life. But what that does is it keeps my perspective open to other people's opinions and views. Now, I'm not saying you have to change who you are to the core, but you at least have to be willing to listen. So that's just a good test for me. So I really want to challenge our listeners to really take a step back and look at who's in your circle, like your really tight circle, the ones who you talk to the most, the ones who you consider like your actual like friends, your best friends, your brothers, sisters, or whatnot, and dissect who they are. Like, okay, are they all cops? If every single one of your really good friends are police officers, you should probably venture out and find someone who's not a police officer and befriend that person. Are they all, white, or are they all black? Then you should probably take a step back and venture into the opposite world and befriend somebody, just to keep that open mind and the ability to, have those tough conversations and difficult dialogues.
So let me ask you guys, do you guys think, because, there's a lot of people that want to stand for what they believe in and they want to be vocal about what they believe in, but do you guys think that there's a time and a place to do that? For example, like let's just say somebody has a Trump hat, and let's say they truly believe in President Trump and everything he did, or former President Trump and everything he did. Do you think that there's a time and place to wear a hat like that, even if you truly believe that he was a great president? Or let's just say Biden had a hat, but same concept.
Well, isn't that funny how if someone was wearing a Biden hat, no matter what state, no matter what city, they wouldn't be thinking I might get beat up or yelled at. Mm-hmm. But if you're wearing a Trump hat, some places you're probably gonna get yelled at or beat up.
Mm.
I don't know. I think
because this is the same for masks too.
Yeah. I think there are people who would feel like uncomfortable wearing like the opposite of a say a Biden hat. I do think there would be people like, I can't wear this, or I might run into an extreme Trumpist that like spit on me or fight me, because once again, like there's extremes on both sides. So I agree with what you're saying, but like not all the way, just because I do know, and I've talked to them. Like I've talked to people who are like extreme pro, like Trump support. Like, he can't do anything wrong. He can't say anything wrong. Riding on the Trump train. Anybody that's against Trump is an idiot. I'm not going to hear your views. Blah blah blah. And I could see them. Like I could see these individuals that I've talked to, like spewing hate towards somebody that wears like a Biden, whatever, or whoever's running against Trump, or whatnot. So I man, that's a tough question, man.
Because my point is, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm trying to get at is like, is it okay to stand up for what you believe in, or should we be wise, knowing that even though I stand up for something, this is a potential trigger that will ultimately cause me to miss out on hearing somebody from the opposite end of the spectrum because I've already automatically triggered them. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. I'll tell you what I thought of as soon as you asked that question. We have like a humongous fireworks show here every year. It's called Red, White, and Boom, and hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million people come to this. And it's like the second biggest event that the city of Columbus has every year. And that's including like the Arnold Classic and like the Quarter Horse and all this stuff, right? Super big events. But every year there's a group of people who are anti-abortion, and they come and they have signs, like these humongous signs of graphic pictures of like dead babies and like dead fetuses. And they walk down there and they have like megaphones and they're screaming at people. And I'm always like, man, like, this ain't it. Like
this ain't the time.
this ain't the time. Like, really, you're being counterproductive because like no one wants to see that. Like what message are you really spreading? So like that's where my mind goes with that. So, you know, when you ask that question, like my initial reaction is to say, absolutely, there's a time and a place. But then at the same time, I'm like, you know, if you're proud of, you know, who you are or what you stand for, especially like living in this country, you should be able to, you know, wear a hat or wear a shirt, or something to that effect, right? That like says who you are without any fear of like repercussion or offending somebody. So I guess my answer is this. There's not a time and a place unless what you are trying to get across is naturally offensive in nature. But then that opens up a whole different world, right? So then it's like, naturally offensive to who? Because I might not be offended by these dead babies on this thing, right? So that's a tough one, man.
It is a tough one. And I would, you know, I venture to even ask the next question, which would be, have we kind of created this culture? Because prior to social media, you know, we didn't really it felt like we weren't forced to choose sides. It almost felt like because we didn't know the person behind the computer, when you went out in public, you were a little bit more cautious on what you said just because you didn't know your audience. And I guess what I'm getting at for me is I'm kind of on the other side where I like to know my audience before I like to just start going out there and, you know, yelling and proclaiming who I am, because I think you can miss opportunities to, you know, either win somebody over to your side or even try to understand where that other person is coming from. So I think it's almost like we had that conversation about the thin blue line a while back. Is I know what the thin blue line represents. I know that it represents a lot of honor and it's a noble cause, but I also know it's a trigger for many. And so if I know it's a trigger for many, some might say that, you know, I'm just being a part of the herd of the sheep and just following along and being quiet. But I kind of view it as, for myself, being wise, because it allows me to get to know people on both sides without having to be judged. You know what I mean? So like if I wore a Trump hat somewhere, I already know that's going to be a trigger for a lot of people. So I may go to the grocery store with a Trump hat on, and I may be loud and proud, like, hey man, this dude did his thing. But let's say the person that's checking me out or somebody in the store is a complete on the opposite side, Biden fan, Obama fan, all that other stuff. Do you think that we could have a good conversation without even opening up our mouth? I use the example of my Jordans. Like a lot of people always say, oh man, I love your Jordans. But my Jordans, when I go to a school and teach or speak, will, without even opening up my mouth, will automatically create a connection with these kids because they could relate to them. So when you have stuff that could be divisive, like a hat or a mask or whatever it is, that might be a trigger for somebody, should we be more wise in when we use that? And not for the sake of going with the flow of people, but just being more wise in our interaction. Billy,
well, I think your school presentations is the perfect example because you're trying to reach them. So you don't want to go in already upsetting them, right? So you go in as you don't wear a thin blue line shirt. You go in as yourself, like your It's Needed a shirt, some Jordans. They get to know you before you even bring up I'm a police officer. Day to day, you shouldn't really care if you're offending someone. So like I would never, whatever. So if you want to wear a Trump hat to the grocery store, I don't think that matters because you're not going there with a specific intent of reaching people. But if you're going somewhere to reach people and for them to truly get to know you, be wise about how you present yourself.
Yeah.
That's a good angle. I'll ask you this, Ryan. Say you got a gig speaking at a school, but the school was one that wasn't familiar with Jordans and maybe even like on the opposite end of spectrums. Like if you came in with Jordans, they would probably think you were like ghetto. Would you still wear Jordans to go and speak at that school?
Yeah, I would. That's a good question.
That's kind of like counter, you know what I mean? It's kind of like counterproductive or contradictive.
But here's the thing though, is like unless Jordans were like, if Jordan was caught up in a headline and did something crazy, Jordan's not a trigger. I'm talking about things that we know are triggers for people. Like we
What's
know.
what I'm saying is like, but you would know, like, it would be a trigger, even though it's not a rational trigger.
Yeah.
You would know it's a trigger for this student body going in, like prior to going into the
So
setting.
so if I knew it was a trigger, then no, I wouldn't wear it. If I knew it was a trigger, simply
Gotcha.
because it would automatically prevent me from trying to make the connection that I'm there for anyway. And so
Yeah.
I know
No,
Billy's.
that's good.
I understand Billy's example, but
Yeah.
going back to the Christianity side of me is like, I think that every opportunity in life is an opportunity to connect with somebody. You don't know.
Yeah.
You may have that
Yeah.
opportunity where you go to the store and might meet somebody that, you know what I mean? So I just think I try to remove as many things as I can that could potentially prevent me from, you know, connecting with the and I'm talking about things that we know are specific triggers. So this
That's what I
isn't
was about to
saying
say.
change your whole life and stuff like that to adapt. But if you know a Trump hat or a mask, like, because a mask is the new one, because now, you know, they're lifting everything up right now, and so, you know, some places say you still wear your mask, some people say don't wear your mask. And so obviously you're never going to be able to please everybody, because that's not what this is about. Like, we can't live a life trying to please everybody because it's just impossible. But
Yeah.
at the same time, when you're dealing with things that you know for a fact are triggers, and you're wearing it just to trigger somebody, I think that's what I'm talking about more so. Because right now we have a society on social media where everybody just wants to be saying loud and proud for what they believe in, but they're really just doing it to trigger people. Because if you honestly think, how many people, unless you're like a public figure or someone that has influence, how many people are actually being followed by other people from the opposite perspective or opposite end? They're not. They're being followed by those that have the same ideas and same viewpoints for the most part as they do. So when you wear and preach that stuff, you're really not doing any type of service, because you're not impacting those that actually need to be impacted.
I got to share one more story, and then I'm going to ask a question that really might take this to like the next level. So a little while ago, I double booked myself. You know, there was a birthday party. I got to be careful here with like details. There was a birthday party for somebody that lives in like a very bad area, and that's where the birthday party was. And I committed to going to this birthday party completely separate from work, right? Like, I was going to go off duty and be, you know, AJ, right, and go celebrate this birthday. And I'm comfortable doing that, right? Like, I'm pretty vetted in this area and really throughout the city here. I also committed to surprising someone who was throwing a pro-police rally, almost like it was basically like a rally just to let like police officers know that they're like supported. And he's like a very young man, and I was just like very proud of like everything that he's doing. So like, his mom reached out to me, and she's like, you know, he really looks up to you. It would mean the world if you like showed up. And I was like, absolutely, I'll be there. So I was like, man, like, how am I going to do this? I was like, well, I'll just go straight to the rally, like the We Support the Police rally. And then I'll leave, I'll keep it short, say hi, get a picture, give like a little speech if you ask me to. I'll leave there and go directly to the birthday party, just be like a few minutes
All
late,
of his
right?
Thin Blue Line stuff.
So exactly. So I show up to this rally, and I think I had this exact same shirt on. For those of you who can't see, it's a Humanizing the Badge shirt that had like a badge in the middle with a thin blue line. And then I have my flat brim hat that has an American flag with like a thin blue line on it. And we've actually talked about that hat. My brother got me that hat years ago. And my brother, I mean, to this day, still isn't a fan of the police, right? Which that's a whole different, cave that we could dive into. So I show up, I do the thing, and everyone's like, we want to take pictures and, give like a little speech. And, he's like showing me around, introduced me to a bunch of people. I'm like, okay, I got to go. So I hop in the car, I drive to the different opposite end of the city. And like I said, this is like a high crime area of the city. I get out my car, and, I'm in my personal truck, normal clothes, right? I hop out and have my thin blue line stuff on. And I automatically went like, I got to take this stuff off. Not because I'm ashamed of it, just because I don't want to bring like any conflict to this party, right? Like, I don't want somebody to see this and then it takes away from this person's birthday party, right? So I take my hat off, and right before I get to take my shirt off, a female who was somewhat like an organizer for the birthday party. Excuse me for my vagueness here, but I just have to be careful how I navigate through this. Walks up to me and she's like, oh, about time you made it. She's like, everybody waiting on you. She's like, what you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm just taking this off. And she's like, let me see what it is. So she sees my shirt and she's like, yeah, she's like, you better change that or turn it inside out. She's like, I would hate to beat somebody up on your behalf at this party. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, we're laughing like, nah, like, it ain't like that. But I was like, I just want to avoid the conflict or whatever. But afterwards I was just like, man, like, I feel like I did that for the right reason, right? Like, I don't want to bring like any negativity, any undue, issues or, conflict to this positive environment. Right. But at the same time, I was like, it sucks that I have to do that.
Yeah.
So I guess that is my question, and not the big question I want to get to. But it sucks that I have to do that. So my question is, we, like, meaning you and I, Ryan, like, I think we think very similar in most parts of our lives. We do that because we understand, right? Like we see every opportunity as an opportunity to connect with people. We don't want to bring like negativity into like a positive environment. We really want to just open up the doors for people to feel welcome to talk to us so we could, help build those bridges. But is it right that everyone has to feel that way, or even us?
Well, so for me, what I kind of look at it is, and going back to our faith side of it, is just something, a symbol or whatever it is, be that much more important than me connecting with them and have the possibility to leading them back to Christ. Mm-hmm. And why I say that is because, and I'm not just trying to say this to be all, religiously or Christian, you know what I mean? But Christianese is what people like to say, but that's the true reality of it. Like, should I have that much, energy into representing this symbol or this flag or this hat that I can't just remove it for the sake of trying to connect with another person and try to understand them? You see what I'm saying? And I think that's what I'm getting at. Is like sometimes we put so much energy and focus, like, no, I got to get my point across. Like, they need to understand what I represent and what I believe. But unless you're preaching Jesus, should we really be giving it that much energy for the sake of potentially losing a connection with somebody?
I'm with it.
You know what I'm saying? And so that's where, like, I think, and I don't like to think of it as like I'm appeasing them. I'm capitalizing on our opportunity to get to know them. And I think that's the dangers of the dangers of this line that we walk, is we get so caught up in, I want people to hear my message. They're going to hear my message, but are they really hearing your message? They're really not going to hear your message, because the moment you bring whatever trigger you have to the party, they're automatically going to tune every word that you hear out. I've made, and AJ, you could probably agree with this, I have made more connections with people that oppose the police because I have been able to be myself away from the badge in law enforcement.
For sure.
And then once they get to know me, now I can start bringing that humanizing the badge shirt out, because they know exactly what it represents. But they would have never known what it represents had I allowed that to trigger them the first time I made the interaction with them.
Yeah, you're 100% right. Like, even that female who walked up to me when I was changing, like, she's not only did she see the shirt and it didn't bother her, but she even took it a step further and said, I would hate to have to beat somebody up on your behalf.
Defend you, exactly.
And it's because, so you're absolutely right. I just wanted to pose that question just because, I felt that way. I was like, man, like, it sucks that I even have to do this. Like, and it's not fair in a sense, right? And since we're talking about like the thin blue line stuff, a few weeks ago, I was talking to a very popular rapper. I'm not gonna say who he was, and he was just kind of like, hey, when are you going back to work, type of thing. And I was telling him. And he's like, we need you now more than ever. And he's like, I have a cousin who I'm really close to who's a police officer in a major city. And he's like, I talk to him a lot about what's going on. And he's really helped me with my perspective on things. And I was like, oh, I had no idea that you had family that were in uniform. And he flat out told me, he was like, he's like, I just don't talk about it because I don't want to face like the negativity that will come with that. And I was just like, man, like, that's like, it sucks that that's the reality of the world that we live in right now. That's like a little different, but not really, right? Because all he's doing is verbalizing. Like, hey, I have a family member who I love dearly, and I talk to him most daily. It's a police officer, but he's even afraid to do that because he's like, you know, and maybe he's like, you know, I don't want it to, you know, stop the message that I have, or maybe he's just like, you know, I don't want to face what comes with, you know, me saying I not only support you as a police officer, but I have a family member as a police officer as well.
Well, you know, like in a perfect world, we wouldn't have to worry about these triggers triggering other people in a perfect world. But
you're right. But
if you remove the law enforcement side of it, it's been like that for forever. And now I think as I've gotten older, I've understood it more, because I used to be the guy that used to say, man, I'm not adapting or conforming for nobody. Like, I'm not about to change.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For nobody, because that, like, you know what I mean? But understanding, like, as I get older, if I go get a job, I'm not about to show up to the job with my Jordans and jeans on and my fitted hat, just because I know that it's going to send a message that the people that are interviewing me are not even going to hear any of the words that come out of my mouth, because the message that it's going to send to them is I'm unprofessional, this and that. I didn't really treat it as such. And so it's not just law enforcement in general. That's how we kind of are as human beings, is sadly, we judge a book by a cover before we actually even understand the pages. You know what I mean? And so we just got to be careful of, you know, not going too far one way or the other, and just understanding our audience.
You said something that I don't want to brush over, because it's something that I've said probably 1,000 times, if not more. But I forget how you worded it, but you basically said, like, once I befriend these individuals, then I'm able to break out, like, the humanizing the bad shirts, the thin blue line shirts, and allow them to get to know that side of me. And I don't want people to just hear that, you know, once, or just kind of brush over it. That is very, very, very important. And I will say, you know, this is just me speaking personally, that mindset is the reason I've had the success that I do. And I'm not talking about like the social media, you know, success, the success with the podcast. I'm talking about like the success as far as like the relationships that I have in like the community that I serve, how comfortable I am in like very hostile situations where most officers are not comfortable, and how comfortable I am going to the area that I serve off duty, no vest, you know, none of that. And everybody knows that I'm a police officer, is because I'm willing to put myself in like uncomfortable situations, or situations where I just would maybe not want to be in for a short amount of time, or even for a long amount of time, because I know that at the end of that, I'll be able to convert that person's mindset, or at least allow them to see me as a different person. And, you know, I'll just give you an example. People are always like, oh, that's the dancing cop, right? And I have police officers who are like, oh, why don't you go dance? You ain't dancing today? Ain't you the TikTok cop? Ha, 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 right? And they try to clown me and roast me. And it's like, well, guess what? I'm willing to completely embarrass myself for the world to see, if it means shortly after that, they go, man, he's a cool cop. Mm-hmm. And then what happens? I'm able to go, oh, I appreciate you thinking that I'm a cool cop, but let me introduce you to my man, Ryan. And then they meet Ryan. They're like, wow, I know 2 cool cops. And then we just keep introducing them to people, right? And we're not purposely doing this to like force our views on them. We're just, oh, you think I'm cool? Let me introduce my homeboy who happened to be a police officer. Boom, 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 right? Now they know 10. And then before they know it, they're like, well, hold on. Maybe police officers aren't so bad. Man. Maybe the profession isn't what I'm being told it is. So what you said was powerful, Ryan. And I want people to like really think and dissect what you said. I was just talking to an organization a few days ago about that exact same thing. And they're like, well, they essentially asked, you know, well, how can we just duplicate you? And although that was like a very big compliment, right? Like I was like, wow, that's like a big compliment. I said that exact same thing. Like, well, you know, you don't need to duplicate me. You just need to have sustainable officers that can go out and do this, right? So like my partner Jones has worked with me for years. The same connection that I have with the community, he has with the community. The same trust that I have with the community, he has with the community. If I'm not at work, he out in the community, and he can introduce other officers. So if I'm not working and Jones is working with another officer, guess what he's doing? hey, this is my boy Officer such and such. I know you ain't met him yet, but I just want y'all to get to know him. He works these days. This is who he is. Just a real quick snippet. And then he introduces the community to him. Like, oh, this is Ty right here. He's 13 years old. He's got a twin sister. Their mother ain't around. They're raised by their grandma. There's 10 of them that live in a 2-bedroom apartment. We keep an eye on them because their grandma's struggling. And before you know it, it's this spider web of relationships of let me rewind. It's a spider web of natural relationships. They're not forced. These relationships organically happen. So you about to get me started, man. So going back to how we opened this podcast and we talked about the kid that I met and how he inspired me to like push harder and reach more people. I want you to combine both of those things. I want you to combine that motivation aspect of the beginning of this podcast, and then I want you to combine the nugget that Ryan really dropped right there of maybe stepping out of your comfort zone for a bit in hopes that you could befriend somebody and then slowly introduce them to whatever aspect of your life that they may not have originally been comfortable with. And just see how things change around you.
Bro, man, that's so, I love what you just said. And I'm going to, again, going back to scripture, I'm going to bring scripture into this even more because this is going to tie it all together. So 1 Corinthians 9:22, and I'm going to read it from the NLT version, but this is the Apostle Paul speaking. And this is what he says. He says, when I am with those who are weak, I share their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings. And so what he's basically saying is, even if I have to be weak for the sake of them, then I'm going to adapt for the sake of leading them back to Christ. And that's kind of what my point I was getting with is like, at the end of the day, when we want to wear the MAGA hat, when we don't want to wear the mask, or we do want to wear the mask, we want to wear the Biden hat. At the end of the day, it's pride. We're doing it because we want to prove to somebody else that this is what I stand and believe. But if all that stuff has nothing to do with Christ, then are we really doing ourselves a service? And so that's why when I say there's value in neutrality, I truly believe that, because in order for me to try to come as an open canvas without portraying all of my, preconceived beliefs, that's the way I'm going to essentially be able to adapt to ultimately win you either back to Christ or just have a great relationship with you. Now, that I don't want you guys to get that confused. That does not mean I'm going to sacrifice or change my beliefs or, or try to go away from what I understand morally, ethically. But all it does mean is that I'm not going to lead with those things. And so I wanted to have this conversation because I had a conversation this week with somebody that was very similar along the line. And trust me, bro, like it was a deep conversation because it was one of those where the person that what they're saying is absolutely right. Everything that they say was absolutely right as far as the way they understand and believe something. But on the same token is like, just because it's right doesn't mean you have to lead with that. And just because it's right doesn't mean that you have to shout it out to the world like, hey, look at this, look at this, look at that. There's a way to do it. And we got to use wisdom, especially if we are believers in Christ. We got to use wisdom in how we do that because we don't want to push people away.
Yeah, there's an old saying, you get more bees with honey. You get more bees with honey. So
there it is, man.
Billy, what you got on this, man?
No, I mean, you guys are.
Billy just put on his MAGA hat.
Billy's like, I'm a lamp. I thought I was a lamp.
Yeah, I'm just a lamp today. No, I got nothing to add. I agree.
Billy put on his MAGA hat as we was talking. He just started mad dogging me.
No, that stays on the shelf at home.
Does Biden have a hat? Is that a real thing, by the way?
I don't know, actually.
I'm sure every president had a hat.
Let me see. I'm gonna look it up.
Oh man, but hey man, this is a good conversation. We're gonna start wrapping it up shortly because my brother AJ has to leave early today. Do any of you guys got a one got to go? Because if not, I got a. Do you got a one guy that has to go, AJ?
I don't. Oh yeah, it's the Biden Harris hat. I've seen this.
So I got son. Oh yeah, I have seen that.
Does it have the gas prices or something on there?
Oh, shots fired! Shots fired!
Oh man, I love that. So I do have a would you rather.
Okay, we ain't did this in a while.
Yeah, I don't even know if we've done this ever before.
It's a first.
Yeah. So would you rather fly or would you rather be able to swim without having to come up for air? But you can also like come out of the water.
Well, I know AJ would want to swim.
No. Fly. I don't mess with the ocean. Listen, over 90% of the ocean is unexplored. We don't know what's in there. So like, yeah, it'd be cool to like swim and be in the water forever. But like, I'm thinking like, okay, it would be dope to swim, right? Like you just hop in the ocean, swim to another like country or whatever. But then I'm like, well, in the middle of the ocean, what if like the Bigfoot of the ocean comes up and no one knows what this thing is, or you got to deal with a shark? Yeah, I will fly because ain't nothing gonna see me in the air. What's gonna see me in the air? An eagle? Square up, eagle. Let's go.
What if you lose your wing, bro? You come crashing down.
You know, they say I had wings. I'm thinking like I'm like Hancock. Like I can
oh man. What about you, Billy?
Yeah, I think anyone would want to fly. I think everyone would choose fly. It's like way more fun.
Yeah. It's stupid. This is stupid, Ryan.
But if you can go in and out, of the water, and not have to worry about like holding your breath or whatever, and just stay under there as long as you could.
I mean, why? Like, what benefit? Is this a party trick? Like,
yeah, you'd win a lot of bets. Like, I bet I can hold my breath longer than you. That's about it.
Yeah. If you could fly though, man, that'd be sweet. Like, you'd be like, we can record a podcast.
Okay,
so like an hour early.
So would you rather? So would you rather live in space or would you rather live in the ocean?
Ryan is high right now. Y'all.
Yeah, he started microdosing this week, so he's like asking some weird questions.
I saw this yesterday because I was watching Ryan on YouTube with my kids. They freaking love that kid, bro.
What's it called?
Ryan. You'll see as your son gets older, bro. He watches like he's like the one that reviews toys and stuff like that with his parents. He's like
is he like what's his not BB Bop? What's his name?
No, you're talking about Blippy.
Blippy.
I thought you were talking about like a Blippy.
Yeah,
hey, he's killing the game. He's making like millions upon millions of dollars.
Ryan's only like 9 years old. Ryan makes like
is he the unboxer?
Yeah, he made like $22 million one year.
Yeah, so he's like the number one person on YouTube, like as far as like making the most money. Like he's made like $20 million a year or something like that.
Yeah. So anyways, his parents were doing this Would You Rather yesterday. I watched it with my kids. That's actually pretty funny. So
would you rather
be a lion or a cheetah? Fast like a lion or fast like a cheetah or ferocious as a lion?
King of the jungle, baby. Yeah.
Yeah, lion. King of the jungle. That's right. You respect me. Put some respect on my name.
Put some respect on it. Oh man, well man, this was a good episode. I think people are going to actually get some value to this episode, just because I think what we talked about today is a dilemma that everybody's facing right now. In the time of everybody being politically correct or, saying things that they shouldn't say or want to say something, but they don't know if they don't want to take, heat for it. I think this was a very relevant conversation to everybody right now that's going through life. So appreciate you guys sticking around with us. Just couple quick announcements. Just make sure if you guys haven't already, subscribe to the Common Hero Project. If you guys want to be better on the inside so you guys can be better, or better on the inside so you guys be better on the outside. So that's commonheroproject.org. Make sure you guys continue to give us a 5-star rating, 5-star review if you guys enjoy this podcast. It helps us move up the charts, and things are opening back up, so that means AJ and I are going to be back on the speaking trail. So if you guys would like to have us out at your organization to speak, whether it be your high school, your college, your private organization, whatever it is, please feel free to shoot us an email. You can, I think we have an info at itsneededpodcast.com. Do we have that?
It's neededpodcast@gmail.
Oh, there we go. It's neededpodcast@gmail.com. Send us your inquiries if you're interested in having either one of us come out and speak to your organization or both of us. We definitely be interested in doing it. It's kind of be nice to get out there and be able to just be people again and speak to those and spread the good message. So you guys got any closing words?
I think we touched on it. I think we did a great job. So I do not.
Perfect. Billy, I know Billy just a lamp over there. So
it is a lamp.
With that being said, y'all, we'll get back to the special guests either next week or the following week. And you got a birthday coming. Your birthday is in July, right, or June? Your
July. Yep.
July. That's right. Mine is June, so mine will be a couple weeks. So I'm getting old.
Oh man. Yeah, that's you.
Getting old, man. So all right, y'all. Well, we love y'all. We'll see y'all next week.
Peace.